If you're struggling with contamination OCD, do you understand this? We'll talk all about it. Stay tuned. That's what's up next. Hi, my name is Natasha Daniels. I'm a therapist and I help people with anxiety or OCD. And today I want to talk to you about contamination OCD. Contamination OCD is really one of the hardest OCD themes because it can spiral out of control super fast. The problem with contamination OCD is that OCD will tell you that something, for some reason, and it's different for each one of you, is contaminated. And it is contagious. And that's how I look at it. It can spread. And so maybe something touched this, and then that thing touched that, and then that person touched that, and then that person touched that. And now all of a sudden, half my world is contaminated. And the struggle with OCD, especially contamination OCD is quick to develop a whole bunch of rules, rigidity, compulsions that you have to abide by in order to stay safe from the contamination. And by safe, that doesn't always mean a core fear. It could be safe from a feeling of disgust, a feeling that it doesn't feel just right, or a feeling that it's like bad. Also a feeling of germs, a feeling of dirt, a feeling of something that's going to harm you or harm other people. Everybody with contamination OCD has different themes and core fears related to it, but the underlying issue is the same. Things spread, things get contaminated. A lot of people with contamination OCD have to mentally check. Did I touch this? Did she touch that? I'm watching what is contaminated and what is not. There's this constant tally in the brain going, that's contaminated, these are contaminated. These things I can't touch, or these things I can't be near. These things are safe, right? I have to do these things, these rules, these compulsions in order to keep my world safe from that contamination. Maybe I have to wash, maybe I have to avoid, maybe I have to do certain compulsions. They're different for each person. But here is the deal. What is interesting that I found with the people that I've worked with, contamination OCD, and the families that I worked with in my online community, is that a lot of times OCD gets lazy. OCD is like, I don't even have to tell them why that's contaminated. I don't have to tell them what's scary or what fear will happen. I just have to say, oh, that's contaminated. I've worked with people where they don't even remember why something got contaminated to begin with. You say, why can't you touch those shoes? I don't remember. It's been like that for so long, right? How many things do you know as far as why they're contaminated? And being contaminated because it touched something else is not ground zero for contamination. That's just something contaminated touching something else that's contaminated. Can you go all the way back? What is your ground zero? That's what I call it, the ground zero that started your contamination. Often, it becomes such a rigid rule and such a compulsion that OCD doesn't even tell you anymore. And sometimes people are like, I don't know. I really can't remember. And some people can. They know exactly the moment that ground zero started. They had this thought and they touched this, or something gross touched that, or there's germs on this and there's germs on that. But what is it for you? And the reason why it is so important is because if you just spend all your time trying to touch things that are contaminated or trying to expose yourself to things that touch something that got contaminated, that's really helpful, but it's not the head of the snake. It's not the head of the beast. If you want the head of the beast, you want to confront OCD and you want to make OCD work a little bit more and say, you know what, from now on, I'm not just following your rules as a blanket statement because you've got me on a hamster wheel. And it's a hamster wheel that's getting me nowhere. I'm spinning and I'm moving and I'm doing all that you say, and all you keep saying to me is move faster, spin faster. That's contaminated, that's contaminated, that's contaminated, that's contaminated. And guess what happens to your world? Smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until your only safe area could even just be your bed or your bedroom. Is that true for some of you? Probably, right? And if it's not true for you now, it can be true, because I've watched people quickly have a world like this, and their family members are held hostage because they're contaminated or they can spread contaminations. There's all these rules about I take a shower and then no one can touch me, or I have to go right into my bed, or other rules. And those rules are not based in any fact. All they're based on is OCD hijacking your brain and telling you if you don't do this, it's going to feel disastrous. You're going to feel so panicky. So I invite you in this video to think about, what is my ground zero? What's the lie that OCD is spoon feeding me about all the contamination? What's my core fear? Is ground zero a person? Is ground zero a thought? Is ground zero this one item that something happened to, and now everything that touched that item and everything that touched the items that touched the items blew it out of control? Ask yourself, because when you know what ground zero is, or what was the very first thing that got contaminated, that could be really helpful. Then you can do exposures around that idea and that topic, right? If bird poop is your core fear, your ground zero, we could do exposures around that actual core fear. If dust or plastic or glitter or germs or bad thoughts, I'm just thinking of some common ones, a bodily fluid, that one no one likes to talk about, but that's a really common one too. What is your ground zero? Because then you can start doing exposures with a therapist ideally, where you're tackling the ground zero, right? You're going for the head of the beast. I'm going to do exposures around the thing that is contaminated. And it doesn't have to be scary. It could be a small baby step, but that is a really powerful way to crush contamination OCD. Once you understand what OCD is lying about and OCD is spoon feeding you about, then you can unravel the whole lie that OCD is feeding you. That is, I can stay safe, and being safe means maybe out of discomfort or distress, as long as I do what OCD says. But OCD gives you a longer and longer list. It's like a vicious cycle. And so you do the list, and then OCD's like, oh, here's some more. And then you do the list, and oh, here's some more rules. It will never stop. The only way to stop contamination OCD is to work through contamination OCD and get to the other side. And that means starting to resist what OCD wants and understanding the lie underneath everything. Take it one small step at a time. Contamination OCD is really, really hard, but you can do it. Just start pulling that string, one small pull at a time, and you'll make progress. I hope this was helpful. I hope that you find the sparkle in everything you do. If you are aware of your ground zero, let other people know in the comments, and that can help other people realize, maybe I have that ground zero as well. I'll be back next Thursday. Take care.